Diseasemaker's Croup. An affliction, morbid in its intensity, unfortunate in its scope, afflicting those who habitually and pathologically catalog and construct diseases. Obvious initial symptoms include headaches, nervous colic, a pronounced trembling, and one of several rashes of an intimate nature. These, however, taken together or apart, are not enough to guarantee a diagnosis. The secondary stage of the disease is mental, a fixation upon the notion of diseases and pathogens unknown or undiscovered, and upon the supposed creators, discoverers, or other personages involved in the discovery, treatment, or cure of said diseases. Whatever the circumstances may be, once and for all, the author would warn against any trust being placed in the specious advertisements in appearing, the eyes projecting, the usual way. The administration of small injections of beef tea or meat broth will assist in maintaining strength. At these stages, the disease may be treatable. It is the tertiary stage of disease maker's croup, though, at which its true nature can be seen and a diagnosis confirmed. It is at this point that certain problems afflicting both speech and thought manifest themselves in the speech and writing of the patient, who, if not placed under immediate care, will rapidly find the condition deteriorating. It has been remarked that the invasion of sleep and a boiling 2 ounces of the point of suffocation. The face becomes swollen and livid, the throat is a hereditary tendency, and the tongue assumes the natural characteristics of the lungs supervene. The emotion is liable to be excited by whatever recalls forcibly to the disease in question, which are so perseveringly and disgustingly paraded before the public eye by quacks. Tertiary disease makers croup can be diagnosed by the unfortunate tendency of the diseased to interrupt otherwise normal chains of thought and description with commentaries upon diseases, real or imagined, cures nonsensical, and apparently logical. The symptoms are those of general fever, coming on suddenly, round swelling, just over the knee pan. When quite chronic, and finally perhaps vomiting, offensive fogs. Jalap is an alkaline and presents itself as a colorless and painting the large roundworms which occur in the intestines. The most difficult part of the detection of such a disease is that the class of people who are most likely to suffer from tertiary disease makers group are precisely the people who are least questioned and most heeded. Thus they may be, nourishment cannot of ginger and rectified spirit, the veins turgid, and the latter being evaporated by heat. It is by a great effort of will that a sufferer may continue to write and talk with ease and fluency. Eventually, however, at the final stages of the tertiary form of the disease, all conversation devolves into a noxious babble of repetition, obsession, and flux. Whilst the expulsive cough is going on, the veins turgid, the eyes projecting, the whole frame is so shaken that the invasion of epidemic has been preceded by dense, dark, and if this is not gratified, melancholy, loss of appetite, perhaps vomiting, heat, and the tongue assumes the natural characteristics of the bruised root. At this time, the only cure that has demonstrated its reliability in the war against disease makers croup is a solution of scammony. It is prepared with equal parts of scammony, resin of jalap, and for all the author would warn against any trust being evaporated by heat. Scammony is one widely distributed, though not always actively developed. The face becomes swollen and livid, the throat is more inflamed, and maybe, once and for all, the author would warn against any trust being placed in the intestines. Sufferers of diseasemaker's croup are rarely aware of the nature of their affliction. Indeed, the descent into another world of pseudo medical nonsense is one that cannot fail to excite the pity and sympathy of any onlooker. Nor do the frequent bursts of sense amidst the nonsense do more than force the medical man to harden his heart and to declare once and for all his opposition to such practices as the invention and creation of imaginary diseases, which can have no place in this modern world. When bleeding from leech bites continues longer than is required by the system, they are seized with a boiling 2 ounces of sleep and a boiling 2 ounces of the specious advertisements in question, which are so perseveringly and disgustingly paraded before the public eye by quacks. Scammony is liable to be excited by heat. On the second day, when the eruption in a strong tincture of iodine will generally suffice for all. This is not madness. This is such pain. The face becomes swollen and livid, dark, and consisting of bicarbonate of potash, sesquicarbonate of ammonia, and rectified spirit. The expulsive cough is going on, the habitual consumption of a large quantity of food than is thought necessary. When the mind the beloved scenes, whilst the beloved scenes, they may also become enlarged.